So we're going to be talking about enterprise benefits of Umbraco. And I'll be looking for you guys to give me some of your favorite things as well, because this is more of a collaboration than me lecturing for the next 35 minutes. But I learned something interesting right before flying out here last week. My tags on my car says Umbraco. I think it's kind of fitting. I kind of like Umbraco a little bit. And a gentleman ran up to me and goes, Umbraco, Umbraco. And I'm like, what, Umbraco? He's like, no, Umbraco. And I'm like, well, what's that? Well, apparently in Portuguese, it means to hug, which I thought was kind of fitting. I didn't know that until last week. Random daycare drop-off encounter. So, well, we already passed out most of these since we had a pretty, the early bird gets the worm. So we passed these out before it was gonna be a battle for one person being left out. So, but we make these custom mugs in-house. We laser them. They'll keep your beverages piping hot. So what is enterprise? What does enterprise mean to you guys? Nobody?
Large scale.
Large scale, all right. Anyone else?
Multinational.
Multinational, all right. One more?
People.
What?
Too many people.
Too many people? Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, dinosaurs. Well, believe it or not, I was one Spock for one Halloween. This is, I had shorter hair. My beautiful wife, Yahara, which even Spock approves of, which, you know, is difficult as it can be. So we're going to focus on the 5 T's of enterprise. So flexibility, scalability, stability, security, and usability. And I think we'd probably all agree Umbraco does a pretty good job at these, but we're gonna dive into a few more real quick, go a little deeper on it. So flexibility. So Albert Einstein once said that the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. One of my favorite features of Umbraco is the fact that we can build things quickly and, well, we can change things quickly. I like to always say we're not pouring concrete when we build an Umbraco website because we're open to be able to make changes on the fly. And we often do. So again, a little nice Albert Einstein. But what we mean by this is, you know, we've even found that even from some of our software application standpoints, we can prototype what we want to build in Umbraco first, and then we can actually build it in a traditional MVC framework. And part of it is it's really easy to change the data access layer. It's really easy to test what you're building to get to screen. And I think for an enterprise solution, you know, having that flexibility, the ability to move quickly is important. You know, the other things that are really nice is obviously as enterprise goes, lawyers get more involved. And then you have the Equalities Act in Europe, right? They got this right? We have the ADA compliance for accessibility. Umbraco makes this really easy to do. We've done quite a few conversions to accommodate accessibility or the Equalities Act. The other really nice thing is we can tie into best-of-breed CRMs, client relation management, or ERP systems. We can work with the enterprise software they already have, whether that's allowing members to log into the website or to push data from the website to a lead generator. There's really no restrictions, and that's one of the really beautiful things. Umbraco is there, but it's not burdensome. It doesn't get in your way to do what you need to do to accomplish the client goals. Then obviously e-commerce, for those of you who are still in this room, I think UCommerce just presented. There's T-commerce, there's Marcello. You can build your own. There's really no limitation as far as what e-commerce package or platform you could tie in with Umbraco. I mean, if you can hit an API, you can integrate it into your website. All right, scalability. I think someone mentioned this one. So if you're going to be enterprise, you got to be able to scale. We thought Legos would be appropriate for Denmark. I know we're in London, but so growth is never by mere chance. It is the result of forces working together. James Cash Penney. So to me, what this means is, you know, Umbraco's been growing quite rapidly. When we first started with Umbraco 7, 8 years ago in the United States, it was very rare. I don't even think I'd even seen an Umbraco website in the wild prior to us stumbling across a .NET open source platform. But today, that's not the case. There's a lot of Umbraco websites, and wanted to go over scalability. So one of our partners, they have an 8-week push, and they're going to raise about $14 million, and they do it in $100 transactions over 8 weeks. So how you do that is we scale out. And we actually run with 3 front-end web servers in each region that can auto-scale up to 10. We could let it go higher. We try to throttle it just in case there's some malicious activity, because it should be enough to handle it. And I don't know that we've gone much above 10 simultaneous. Looking at you, Jason, probably not. But Umbraco scales, and it can handle it. We haven't had, knock on some wood, any hiccups during the 2 sprints we've done over 8 weeks. And like I said, the client was able to raise over $14 million in $100 transactions, so a high volume, short time window. So some other things. So multi-site support. So properly developed Umbraco site, at least the ones that we're developing, we can actually clone them. And one of our partners took this to an extreme. They're now 10 plus sites and growing inside of one Umbraco instance. Help them reduce their cost. They're a publicly traded corporation, and they can also share content. So the 10 sites, while they're unique, have different logos, different brand colors, they share the same legalese. So the legal information is now stored in one central location, and it's shared across the multiple sites. So a whole bunch of mortgage companies on the left, they can change out the content they need. They can check some styles, allow some control on banners. So again, flexibility with scalability, right? So both scaling in servers and scaling in number of sites. All very possible with Umbraco. Stability. Very key. It's hard to be a successful enterprise on the web these days without some stability. These guys could use a lesson on stability, because you don't want that to happen. So when stability becomes a habit, maturity and clarity follow. It's a little yogi quote for you. So how do you get stability with Umbraco? Well, we have load balancing. You can set up high availability configurations to make sure that when one domino drops, hopefully your other dominoes can stay standing. You have auditing. In Umbraco, it's actually really hard to delete content. You actually have to go to the database. If you think you've deleted something that was in there, it's probably still buried in Umbraco somewhere. And short of doing some SQL work, you can audit any change that's been made, which is good for like financial sectors and sectors where you need to have these accountability trails. And then redundancy is a little bit redundant at the end, but I did that on purpose. You know, you build in for failures so you can stay online when the worst happens. I had an interesting phone call earlier this week, a little segue, but a client wanted to ask us about hosting. And they're all bent out of shape on, well, what's your SLA? You know, how quickly can we get a human to your server? And it really took me back, because I actually honestly haven't had that question asked, even by some of our publicly traded companies that I might think would have asked me this. And this was a smaller company asking me these questions. And what I realized is since 2008, a lot has changed. We no longer have physical servers. I don't know how many people here have physical servers they're working with. Nobody, right? So no one's fixing fans, swapping hard drives, CPUs failing, nothing. It's pretty good, right? And what's nice is now, because the hardware is stable, if you build your infrastructure out correctly, you can be stable too. So not sure if you guys caught the Red Bull skydive from a balloon, but the website was powered by Umbraco. Had 22 million visits, 50 million page views over that little period. So really, really cool. Free fall, but here's one setup on how you can do this. This is, again, using Azure. You can set this up with AWS. You can set this up homegrown. But one of the things, so this was our pattern we've been using probably since 2015, 2016. And if anyone wants a slide deck, email me, tweet me. One of those, we'll get it to you. We'll get a copy. But this is our old setup. We've actually now added one more layer to make it even more redundant, because I don't know about you guys, I don't like phone calls at 2 a.m. Not my cup of tea. So we've actually added now is Cloudflare. Who in here is familiar with Cloudflare? Couple, handful? Cloudflare is ridiculously cheap insurance that your website stays running all the time. So what it does, it actually will cache all your static pages for you. It'll cache all your images and media, which reduces load on your server. The other nice thing it does, it protects you from DDoS attacks. Now, Microsoft's traffic manager up top there will also protect you from DDoS. I mean, Azure doesn't want to have a bunch of bad traffic. They're obviously a large target, so they're doing mitigation. But Cloudflare is one more step that literally all of this behind here could black out. In our typical Umbraco site, maybe the contact us page wouldn't work. Maybe the search wouldn't work, right? But if everything else failed behind here and we still have that much up and running because of, I think it's under $200 a month, so what is that, 150 pound? And there's even cheaper plans, but the business one's the most reliable for all the caching. It's the cheapest insurance you can offer your customers. No one's gonna balk at $3,000 to have a website that stays up. So, any questions so far? No? Too fast, too slow? It's beer after this, so I can go faster, slower, whatever you guys want. Just tell me. All right. Security. So obviously, Umbraco had a little hiccup in September. Client dependency, everyone patched? All right. We were up at, I think, 1 or 2 a.m. patching till midnight, or no, until noon. And then we went and had margaritas. It felt like midnight. It felt like midnight. Yeah. So if you want to build security, avoid straining people to respect, avoid straining people to respect, I think it's supposed to be training. Avoid training people to respect complex security tasks, but rather teach them to be vigilant in how long for convenient and safe solutions. So this is an international banker, and just keep it simple. The more complex you get, whenever you're getting cute, you're probably creating risk. So keep it simple. There's a couple tools. So Perplex demoed earlier today. If you guys caught that, I think it was the 9:30 session. Can check if it's Umbraco and also show how many things you're exposing as far as which plugins you're running. Really, really cool demo. And then UMB Audit is a tool that we wrote in-house. We're probably going to open source it, but it'll actually scan your VM and it'll detect what version of Umbraco you're running. Even the pre-5 versions where the numbering isn't exactly accurate on the DLL, we fish it out of the web config and can give you it. But one-click patching if you didn't patch or just want to scan your server to see what you might have forgotten. So let us know if anyone wants to see the source code, hit me up. We're more than happy to custom compile or show you guys what we're doing. Like I said, we're pretty sure we're going to open source it. So regular security audits. Obviously, .NET, super secure. We're using it with numerous financial institutions. Umbraco is really popular in the financial sector in the US. I don't know, can't speak for the UK. I don't know where the drive is, but really popular in the financial sector. A lot of that's because you can tie into their existing infrastructure for authentication for who needs to log in, members, editors. Obviously, supports GDPR, which you guys probably know more about than we do. I got the interpretive dance, though, in June, so I think I know what's going on. Anyone here at Code Garden? Back there? They did a whole interpretive dance reading GDPR. All I know is it goes in circles, and more circles, and more circles. But at the end, I think you're safer, I think. She looks safe. But yeah, so we have obviously login of consent, being able to protect sensitive data, really, really big key things to have in a CMS. Little opposite of another product we won't mention. Another neat thing, so this is one of our partners, they build cool military stuff. They actually are running Umbraco in the Azure government cloud, which is insanely difficult to deploy to because it has to go through 100 hops, but it is doable and they allow it to run, so I think that's a good sign. Usability. Nice little Steve Jobs quote here. Well, after Family Guy. So kind of talks about how most people think that design is the pretty stuff. Design's not the pretty stuff. Design is the guts, the thought, the how do we make this simple. You know, I like the part where if you can take nothing more away, that's the perfection in design, right? So really, really good design. I think Umbraco, over the last 7 years, has really matured in this aspect. They've been diligent not to try to be everything to everyone. And with that, they're making a really great content management system. Does it have email marketing built in? No. Can you do email marketing? Absolutely. And you get to pick which tool you want. But again, we can customize the tree structure. We can tailor the experience. One of our favorites, the image cropper. We like that tool a lot. And then workflows are amazing with the forms. Anyone here pushing to any custom workflows on forms? I think we pushed to Salesforce, a few other CRMs. You guys doing any of that? Pushing data to other? No? You can, trust me. It's not too bad either. It's pretty simple. This was a little project we're working on. It's going to be helping pregnant mothers and soon-to-be expecting mothers plan their baby. It's a partnership with a grocery store chain. And we actually had to take most of the data from like, I don't want to say headless, but from their existing mobile API and then replicate it on a web page. And so we used Umbraco to wire up all the screens and pull the data from their existing mobile app. So just really flexible. I think we probably all would agree with this statement. Who here is an Umbraco developer? Who here is an editor? Who here has not touched Umbraco? All right, perfect. Well, I highly recommend you give it a test drive. It's very simple. Really just showing here, you're not limited on design. Umbraco doesn't like get in your way. So from the Red Bull Stratos to spaceships, these are all Umbraco powered, and you literally have a blank canvas to work with, which is really, really nice. All right, my predictions for the future. Can't start without some Back to the Future though, right? So my predictions for like 2020 to 2025. So we've had about 8 years of responsive web design, maybe 9 years, depending on how early of an adapter you were. I think responsive is going to go away. And the reason I say this is the tools like the CMS, like Umbraco, version 8 in particular, which you guys are all missing out on. I'm sorry. Should have been over there. They probably have better mugs. But you'll be able to add these segments and variants. And with that, you'll be able to overload just the aspects that you need for mobile, and we can start sending the right size image to the right device. And as Google increases the reward for having optimized websites like AMP pages, anyone here doing AMP pages? All right, yes. How's your SEO juice?
Haven't been live yet.
Haven't been live yet. I bet you're gonna love it. So, you know, when you build it the way the search engines write the rules, guess what? You get priority. So by sending device optimized content that Google's gonna pick up on that you're mobile optimized with the right image size, you're gonna get better ranking. And in the 2020 to 2030, that's gonna matter. I mean, whoever wins on the search, those are the businesses that are winning, leading. So that's my big prediction for 2020 to 2025. So we'll see if that plays out. V8's coming. Jacob's reassured me next year. So he said he won't go on CodeGarden twice, waiting for it. If you guys don't know Jacob, he's the chief architect of Umbraco right now, or CTO, something fancy. So I think he knows what he's talking about. My contact info, if you guys want the slides. Any questions? Any comments? Did I miss anything? Any key things we're missing in here? I think we just blew through like 40 slides in like 20 minutes. But I know there's beer after this, so I kind of did that for your own sake to make sure you guys get a proper spot in line. Man, you guys... You already got 2 cans? Wait, we should share. It's only right.
I've already drank one.
Oh, all right, all right.
One was for a friend, but
He didn't show up?
No.
Oh, man.
scan up your sort of VMs that you've got, how do you sort of point those to the database still? Do you still have one?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me go back to that, since we have a little bit of time. So the database is here. So unfortunately, you can't do 2 connection strings in Umbraco. So what we typically would do here is we put 2 right here because they both have read-write access to this database. This database right here, I don't know if you can read on the screen, but it says read-only. And so we push the transactions through Azure. It just does it behind the scenes to this. And then what we do is we point the 3rd VM directly to this, but it only is read-only. So what would happen if region 1 fails, Cloudflare will kind of save us, but region 1's out, they want to go hit something that's not in cache. This will have the ability to read, but your contact us, your Umbraco forms will go down. We're working with Umbraco to try to get forms separated from the same database. There's a bunch of reasons to separate it from upgrading your Umbraco website. It's one of those forms is always moving target, so you can't actually do a database freeze. But we're not there yet. But this is just read-only, and then if this was going to be out for longer than a little bit, we'd have to make this read-write, and then at some point reverse it. Yeah. And then with the one that had the 3 regions, we actually did Azure apps. So that's why they were scaling. We set to a minimum of 3 servers in each region. And then they could auto scale up. I don't think we ever went much above 10 though. I think they probably could run at 6 to 8. But it was so cheap to have the extra redundancy that the customer didn't care. They just didn't want to go down. Actually, yeah, great question. So oftentimes we'll have a master server that's actually not even part of this that we'll share with our partners. So they'll have all their master sites on one. Or else one of these will be set as master, but we normally define what the master Umbraco is pushing out. Yep. Especially with the cloud. If you do the Azure apps, we definitely do a VM instance that is the master. If you get into this tricky stuff, highly recommend in your HTML on like the head tag, write out what server region you're in and what environment it is. We use Octopus deploy, so we one-click deploy to all these environments. We couldn't do it any other way reliably. But we've learned over the years is that Azure Apps doesn't necessarily refresh as quickly as you might push code. And so some regions may act up while others are totally fine. So we needed to be able to gather the information of what region was acting up to then kind of give it a kick to restart. It normally only shows up if you're pushing like a breaking change. That's like you change an API or something, that's where that shows up. But otherwise, I mean, Azure's been great. How many people here use Azure? How many people are using cloud? Cloud, okay. And then anyone doing VMs, just straight up like, or AWS, I guess? AWS, nice. Yeah, we mostly do Azure, a little bit of AWS. What we found is when you get into this configuration, you need some plugins, like there's a file storage provider where we actually shift all the media, the user-created content doesn't live on a VM. So in our infrastructure, ideally, and I don't want to be fire tested on this, but if we lost all of our VMs, all the media should be stored in a blob container. So as quickly as we could one-click deploy out the websites, we'd be back up and running in no time. Good questions. Anyone else?
How do you go about upgrading Umbraco in that sort of situation?
That is always the question, right? For a lot of praying. Well, again, like I said, so you have the kicker, right? So if you have Umbraco forms, you can't freeze your content, right? So you're always moving. So either you go down to a maintenance mode, or often what we do is we'll upgrade. Normally the database changes aren't large. They're not typically breaking. So we'll upgrade the database locally and then test it locally and then replace all the files and push them out. Am I accurate on that, Jason?
Yeah, we've only run into one problem. Later ones kind of lock out users.
Oh, locking out users. So
So we kind of just say like, don't edit.
Yeah.
And then they will still write content in forms and things like that, but the Umbraco login kind of gets a little wonky until everything gets in line again.
Yeah, we're definitely waiting for deploy to come. So deploy should package up the content and allow you to do more content migration from a pure staging. But as was discussed in the earlier, I don't know if you guys caught the perplex conversation, it's just not there today. So a lot of your changes, we'll actually have to stub out doc types in production, snapshot production, pull it locally if we want to dev locally. Then once we've tested our code, push back up just the code changes, but with the database constantly running away from us, and no good tool to sync it back up. I mean, does anyone else have any other workarounds? That's what we do. I'm not saying it's right. It works, but is everyone else kind of doing that same pattern, making changes on production and snapshotting it, or?
So what we do is we only make changes in staging and pushing them through courier
Okay.
production. So production is locked down, no one has access unless it's a huge emergency.
Okay. Are you using Umbraco Forms?
No, no.
Okay. Yep.
Might be a problem.
Yeah, it's really the forms data is really the kicker, because you can lock down content changes. Most marketing teams will give you a little bit of breather time to make your changes, but it's the forms that just run wild. The good news is Umbraco is far more stable today than it's ever been. The amount of code coverage, if you guys want to blow your mind, go listen to Lars talk about how they unit test this code now, that every release is getting more stable. It's really impressive. So we used to always laugh, wait for the release and then wait 3 days for the patch. And now it's pretty common they do a release and there's nothing for 6 weeks, and that's a good sign of maturity, right? They're slowing down the dev cycle. Better code. Just got to keep Niels out of the code, just like Jason keeps me out of the code. So. I don't know. We should have brought some beer in here, I suppose. From Wisconsin originally, we like beer a little bit there. We have a big fresh body water of lake that makes pretty good beer. So. And cheese, I know, and really good cheese. And of course, us Americans touring London ended up eating dinner in an American restaurant somehow by happenstance. I had a Chicago hot dog, which was interesting. It was good. It was actually a really good take on a Chicago hot dog, so kudos to pulling off a Chicago hot dog. But we probably could use some food recommendations for tonight. Get some fish and chips. No? No one eats that?
I love it.
Me too. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I mean, we can call it. Go get the break room. We're 8:30. Yeah.